Good morning, Sheila. How are you today?
Good morning, Wayne. I'm very good. How are you today?
I am having fun. This is an excellent day. Thank you very much for asking.
Super. Good.
Yeah. And welcome everyone to 27 Minutes with Sheila and Wayne, where we explore the fascinating world of verbs and their impact on our daily lives. Join us each week as we delve into the different ways verbs shape our language and influence what we do, as we are attempting to make a positive difference in our world, one verb at a time.
Yay.
And Sheila, what is our verb for today?
This verb is a word that celebrates the power of imagination and creation. It is to conjure.
Oh, to conjure. Huh. And I bet you have some definitions for conjure, or do you want me to give you just mine?
I've got a couple little ones that are descriptions more than definitions. Uh, so let me just give those two, and then you can give your other
Four.
four. Okay. I was going to say five. I'm getting better at this, at guessing how many definitions you have. My first was to create something without many resources. And
Okay.
the second one is create a picture or memory in someone's mind.
Mm.
How about you?
I have to make something appear by magic,
Mm,
or as if by magic,
okay.
to change or entreat earnestly or solemnly,
Mm,
to summon by or as if by invocation or incantation,
hmm.
and then to bring to mind, much like you said.
Okay.
And Sheila, how might our listeners contact you with questions and or comments?
Why, thank you. I can be reached at zekeandsheila@yahoo.com.
And I can be reached at Wayne at mindsyncing.com. That's MindSyncing.com. And you don't need a magic wand to do that one. Just Wayne at mindsyncing.com.
You know,
Ta-da!
Wait, when I was looking up this word, the definitions don't spend a lot of time talking about magic or conjuring, you know, supernatural stuff. But all of the research or all of the anytime I type my the word into my screen, that's what always came up.
Yes.
Those contexts. So it was a little bit of a challenge trying to get through all of that to get to other ideas.
And I'm going to have to ditto that or mimic you you on that because I had the same problem. And what?
Okay.
But before we get there, what
Yeah.
were your initial thoughts on this verb, conjure?
I didn't even think about magic. It was about,
Really?
yeah, I really didn't.
Excellent.
My first thought was conjuring new dishes in the kitchen.
Ah, okay.
Somehow that
Huh.
seemed kind of cool.
Okay.
And actually, when I think about it, I do have a story to tell about someone who did that. So,
Oh, do tell.
well, I mean, that's for later on in the
Okay.
podcast. It's
All right.
a
Well,
somber story.
and my initial thoughts were the opposite of yours. I did think of magic.
Okay.
And immediately Harry Potter came to mind.
Of
Boom.
course. Of course.
And all of that, those dynamics that were going on with that series. But
Mhm.
I, I thought conjure, huh? Conjure, and I was thinking magic and magic and magic and magic, and I said, okay, let me start doing some research.
Mhm.
And like you, I go there and I find all these hoodoos and all this black
Right.
magic stuff and all
Right.
this conjuring and all these incantations and all of
Yeah.
these spiritual things. I'm like, no, no, no. I found it difficult. And you you know me, I'm gonna look until I can find what
Yep.
I'm looking for.
Exactly.
So I was looking for what I was looking for, and I did kind of find something, but I said, you know what? Conjuring, how can I implement that, or how have I implemented that in work or at work,
Hmm.
and in teaching? Because in teaching,
Mm.
you do you use many medias to bring to the classroom. And in my business, I brought many kinds of products, if you will,
Hmm. Hmm.
to my clients. And I remember I said, to conjure. And I thought, professionally, I've used it for brainstorming.
That's the word I did come up with, and I link that word with you every time I hear it. You're like the best brainstormer.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I do.
I
I
no,
know.
no, no.
Yep.
I don't know. But and it's because brainstorming is non-judgmental, it's non-discriminating,
Right.
it's non-stereotyping. It's just you just throw it out there,
Yep.
and I can see the wizards in Harry Potter just with their wands winding them up and boom and throwing out these ideas.
Oh, I like that blending of the two.
Yes, yes. I think of visioning when I thought
Hmm.
of conjure
Hmm.
because it's a verbal roadmap. A verbal roadmap. I mean, you
Hmm.
just while you're articulating that vision to your students, to your clients, to whomever, it's like my wife. She says, "I'm thinking out loud."
Ah.
So don't interrupt me. I, and it goes to that one word that we have used a myriad of times
Hmm.
in our podcast, communication.
Hmm.
And she's communicating out loud. We should be communicating out loud when we're doing the visioning kinds of things. I thought of Edward de Bono's six thinking hats, and we've talked about him before.
Hmm.
But he has six thinking hats, and it's the black hat, the blue hat, the green hat, the red hat,
That's
the
right.
yellow hat, and the white hat.
Hmm.
So when you're conjuring ideas from those different colored hats, when you think of the black hat, it's the caution sign.
Mm.
It's critical thinking. When you're thinking of the blue, it's a process. It's planning for the action. It's almost like people say, managers see the bottom line and leaders see the horizon. So
Mhm.
it's the blue process. The green hat is for creativity, is for ideas, going back to brainstorming and those alternatives and possibilities. And I thought, okay, and the red hat is for feelings, intuition, hunches, and gut, which a lot of us use, but the reading and the research, I know that the male species doesn't like to use intuition or gut. They said that's the women do that and that's wrong, but they have been proven wrong too many times because the women are they come out on top. Just saying. The
No
yellow
comment.
the yellow hats are for benefits, for optimism, for the logical reasons
Mm.
that are shared. And the white hat is it's like a white paper's facts. It's what do we
Ah.
know? We have two production facilities. If we're going to, and they're producing as much as they can to produce anything else, we're going to need another facility. So that's going to bring in money, but that's the facts kinds of things.
Mhm.
So Edward de Bono's Six Singing Hats to me is conjuring ideas, but it gives us permission to think outside of the other parameters. And I liked that a lot. And I diverted. I'm sorry, but um, Conjure. I had trouble with it, but at the same time, I had fun with it.
Yay,
If that
good.
makes sense, yes.
Yeah.
And where did you go? I talked a little bit about the six singing hats here too long. Where did you
Oh,
go?
no, no. Well, first I came up with brainstorming as conjuring great ideas, and then
Ah,
I realized Wayne is going to cover that. I don't need to cover that, and he's going to do a great job. So, although I did see a point that was interesting, the possibility of using artificial intelligence as one of the participants in the brainstorming.
oh,
So I thought that's an idea worth pursuing. But then I started going about conjuring memories. And part of that was led by one of the quotes I found here, which is, or a couple of quotes. This is Diane Ackerman, an American poet, who said, "Nothing is more memorable than a smell. One scent can be unexpected, momentary, and fleeting, yet conjure up a childhood summer beside a lake in the mountains." Now, I didn't spend my childhoods beside a lake in the mountains, but I was walking down the bike trail the other day with my dog, and I got a whiff of honeysuckle,
hmm,
which is a perfume I remembered from walking in the fields in summer. There was a field next to our house, and it just took me right back there.
ah,
Similarly, the slap of a screen door takes me right back to conjures up memories of my grandmother's house and having that slapping screen door. In fact, I lived in a house that had a screen door that slapped. You know what I'm talking about if you've had one. It just when it slams, it kind of claps. And a maintenance a guy came to perform maintenance on other parts of the house, and he said, "Well, I fixed that door." I said, "Oh no, I
I
kind of
like that
liked
slap.
that. I know." But then I went to an article that I really enjoyed called Evoking, because that's like conjuring, right?
Mm, yes.
Evoking positive memories is a powerful resource. Also, why what you remember matters. And this is by a woman named Denise Wynn in Psychology Today. And she said, a lot of research backs up the idea that people with depression recall only negative memories easily. And working with depressed people to generate vivid and precious autobiographical memories and then that are positive and then teaching them to recall them at will when you're feeling low has determined there are definite positive effects on your mood. Research also shows that evoking positive memories helps with staying sober, reducing anxiety, and handling stress. You don't have to have all those at once. It helps each of those individually.
That's good.
So, as an example, they studied 500 adults who had struggled with substance abuse and found that completing a brief exercise in selecting a personal photo that captured a happy moment and describing what was happening strengthened their wavering resolve to stay sober.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking if you're working with other issues, it's probably applicable as well.
Yes.
And
I
they're
wonder. I
saying,
wonder if dopamine comes into play there.
let me keep on talking here. I'll bet it
Okay.
does. No, I'm not going to well, I will say, reminiscing about positive memories increases activity in the corticostriatal region of the brain,
Ah.
which
Okay. Dopamine.
is involved in the processing of reward, as well as the brain regions that get suppressed during stress.
Okay.
The prefrontal regions, which are concerned with regulating emotion and cognitive control, in effect, we can use mental pleasure or conjuring up mental positive memories to recover from physical and emotional pain to keep us emotionally grounded and thinking clearly. So basically, although there's more to it here, I do want to tell about a little bit about this one little test study they did.
Okay.
The outcome of it is that reminiscing about a positive experience helps calm us down, say after a fight with a loved one or a confrontation with the boss. So this is the test they use, and this is a favorite experimental means of getting the stress hormone cortisol to surge. They plunge volunteers into an ice cold bath water
Oh. Oh.
or
Oh.
tub.
Oh.
So they plunged people in the ice cold water. At the same time, half had to think about or reminisce or conjure up a positive experience, and half had to conjure up a neutral experience.
Oh.
Those with the positive experience kept the surge in cortisol down to just about 15% of those who were in the neutral memory
Really?
group. 15%.
Oh my goodness.
So
Uh,
if you find yourself plunging into ice cold water, think about happy memories, conjure up happy memories.
okay.
I don't know if this goes back to that lakeside summer in childhood, because I'm thinking mountain lakes are cold. But anyway,
I'm with you.
another study said that if you are distressed and out of your depth, bring vividly to mind a picture of someone who's supportive of you and who you can always trust to be there if you need them. And it remarkably lowers the stress, brings down the stress.
Mm,
So, conjuring up images of our loved one makes them available to us, whether they're alive or if they've passed away. So, that's really cool.
okay.
So,
Yes.
basically, you don't have to be uh, a genius. If you can evoke a positive memory, it's an ever ready mental health resource, free with no waiting lists and no training required.
How fun.
I loved that. So,
Gosh. I remember in school, in grad school, one of our classmates did a presentation.
okay.
And before he started the presentation, he had a person helping him pass out some orange flavored candies to us.
Oh,
And as he passed them out, he said, "Go ahead." And he says, "Now I want you to open them up, take the orange candy out of the wrapper, but don't ingest it until I tell you to. So just keep
okay.
it in the palm of your hand." Um, and it's almost like you putting a biscuit on Zeke's nose and say, "Okay, Zeke, don't eat it
Oh,
until I tell you you can."
focused attention. Totally
Yes.
focused.
So we were focused on the orange thing, and then he said, okay, he started his presentation and he came up with three factual things that he wanted us to remember. He said, okay, now eat the candy and listen to my words. And a week later, he says, "What were the three things I told you guys while you were eating the candy?" And
Oh,
we were all able to spout them off. And he said,
oh.
"That is, I invoked a memory response for you, and you listened to my words, and you conjured up the thought process of eating something orange. So if I
Mm.
told you next week, if I gave you an orange, those three things would come immediately to mind, and they did." I was
Interesting.
amazed.
Yeah.
I was amazed. I was like, wow. And I can still remember those three things. But I'm going to go back to your door slapping thing.
Yes.
The reason I laughed, and the audience probably heard me laughing, why is he laughing incoherently?
Oh,
I was babysitting a cat, house sitting, because the couple were going on vacation and they had nobody to watch their cat. They didn't want to put the cat in the cat kennel.
okay.
And so they said, "Hey, Wayne, would you house sit and watch our cat?" "Sure." And I said, "Well, what's the routine?" Da, 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 da. And they said, "He's an indoor outdoor cat. So he'll go outside. He'll let you know when he wants to go outside. And he will let you know when he wants to come inside from outside." And I go, "How will he
Hmm.
do that?" They said, "You'll know."
I love it when pet parents say that, and they're not wrong.
And they're not wrong. This cat would come up to the porch and he would put up his little right paw and he would and extend his claws into the screen, and he would pull that
Oh.
screen out and then let his claws
Oh.
go, and bam, that door would smack.
Oh.
So while you were saying that, almost like my friends with the orange candy, you
Took
said
you right
smack.
back
It
there.
took me right back to that cat smack, and he would do it about three times. Boom.
How many times did you have to hear it to get the message?
Well, if you're in a different part of the house and you're not
Oh,
right
right.
there, it takes a while to walk there. And if he had to do it four or five times, he would let you know when he came in that he
Yep.
was not happy. You took so long. However, I went down. Okay, I gave you my
Yes.
professional things about brainstorming.
Yes. Yes.
I have some personal things about conjuring.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh, I love it when we all get together and we all discuss recipes of all types."
Yay.
Yes. Outings that will be remembered for all times. I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
I love to go to outings because, again, you remember them. As I told, and we had a podcast and I talked about going to the beach and wanted to go. So that was kind of like a conjuring here of an
Mm.
idea.
Hmm.
Hey, you want to go to the beach? Yeah, I want to hear the bongos. Um, Planning an event, birthday parties, graduation parties, conjuring ideas. Ooh, what can we have? We should have a chocolate cake. No, a white cake. No, we should have a dunking booth. Those kinds of
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
Personal, dreaming. How many of us have ever had a dream about the job you want when you grow up? A soulmate, dreaming about
Mm.
making the team, dreaming about a new car, a new house, the perfect vacation.
Mm.
And if I were in charge, how many of us said this? If I were in charge, what would I do differently? And
Mm.
so, from the personal side, those are the things I came up with.
Yeah.
How, however, the research turned me towards Amy Mosier, and she talked about the 8 elements for fostering cultural magic at work. I had to get magic and
Mm.
work in the same,
Yeah. I
yes.
like it.
And so here we go. She says, applying the elements of cultural magic. She says, exercise strong leadership and vision. And again, talking about the vision, you have to communicate the vision and you have to practice that every day, communicating the vision to everyone that you come in contact with. Number 2 was to create a clear and shared mission. Oh, well, this is your role in what we do, and this is why it's important. And I think that's absolutely important. You have to connect the dots for everyone on the team so
Hmm.
that they know how important their part, their aspect of that relation, of that process is going to play for the overarching product that we're going to produce on the other side. I think that's very, very cool. The last
Hmm.
one, and then I'll turn to you. Well, not the last one, but number 3 of number 8,
Oh,
and then I'll turn to
wow.
you. Exercise transparency and communication. Again, open communications, open transparency. This is what we're doing. I'm leaving nothing to the imagination.
Mm.
You're doing this part, you're doing this part, you're doing this part, and at the end, it should all look like this. Uh, I think that's only I think that's only necessary because you can't put somebody in room A in a dark room, close the door and lock it and say, okay, you have to do this. And then when you finish with that, you can move it over here and somebody else is going to do something else. Well, what are they going to do? I
Gotcha.
don't know, but I can't tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, you know how that goes. All right. Anyway, okay, my friend, I will turn it to you and I will come back for number 4, 5, and 6 after you.
Well, thank you. I just mentioned that I wanted to tell a story about conjuring up memories
Yes.
and good memories. And my stepfather was in World War II as a CB, and his best friend from childhood was in the Army
Uh-huh.
as an enlisted person. Later was invited to go to West Point, but turned it down. And you'll probably know why he reached that conclusion at the end of this story. He, in 1942, was on the Bataan Death March.
Oh,
Now, that was where the Japanese marched from anywhere between 72,000 and 78,000 American and Filipino prisoners of war
mm,
for about 65, 66 miles under inhumane conditions,
yes.
with severe physical abuse and random killings. So this friend of my stepdad's told us this story one evening, and it was so sobering I had trouble sleeping that night.
Mm,
But he ultimately survived that march and was placed in a camp that was really reserved for officers. He was the youngest person there and not an officer, so it was kind of random how he got there. But and ultimately, because the officers knew the Japanese hierarchy, command hierarchy, wouldn't get that they would give the youngest and most inexperienced soldier a position of responsibility. Therefore, he could get away with it more easily. They made him in the camp the communications person.
mm.
Um, but in any case, he said what got him through that whole experience was conjuring up recipes. You talked about sharing recipes.
Yes.
He became a gourmet cook without ever having cooked. And
Wow.
when he did ultimately get out of that camp and said, no thanks to West Point, I've had enough military
He
service,
became a chef.
he did just for his friends and family, a
How about
gourmet
that?
chef.
How
And
about that?
so that is an example of how powerful conjuring up thoughts or memories or visions can get you through something incredibly hard. And um, when he told his story about his experience, his wife told us later that he would not sleep for 3 nights because he'd
Mm,
never talked about this. But it also then conjured up, just talking about it, conjured up memories that were
yes.
very hard for him to let go of as
Yes.
well. So,
Yes.
so I
Yes.
wanted to share that in honor of him
Well, thanks
and
for sharing that.
the power
Yes.
of conjuring. Yep.
And Amy Mosier kind of solidifies what you just said.
Okay.
She says it provides opportunities for growth and development.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
conjuring. Yes,
And survival.
and
Yeah.
survival.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
She says we recognize and appreciate a job well done. And I'm looking at the clock, and we are at 4:45. So wow, we are nearing the end here, my friend.
Okay.
She says promote work-life balance.
Mhm.
It embraces and champion inclusion and diversity. And she says we remember employee well-being when we are conjuring up all of these kinds of magic elements into the workplace. And I thought, yes, but I
Mm.
I too know a gentleman who was in the Bataan Death March.
Okay.
I worked with him and he would obviously never talk about it.
Right.
And he was very quiet and he had his moments.
Mm.
And you would see him and when he had body motions that would
Mm.
communicate to the rest of us. He needs a break,
Gotcha.
and we need to stay clear of him and not talk to him for about a couple minutes until he can get himself back together. But
Good.
he struggled a lot. He
Mm-hmm.
did.
Mm-hmm.
I can see him right now. Mm, terrible. It's terrible what we as human beings do to each
It
other.
is. Yes, it is.
It really is, gosh. Let's conjure up some better thoughts. Have any
You
quotes
know what?
for
Because
us?
we know that conjuring up positive experiences and memories can really take us out of a dark place. So go ahead.
Exactly. I'm going to jump into an ice bath. Ooh,
Yeah. Mm.
golly. Do you have any quotes for us today?
Oh, I thought I gave some quotes. I do. Okay. One trick, known as the journey method or memory palace, is to conjure up a familiar space in the mind's eye and then populate it with images of whatever it is you want to remember.
Oh,
That's
okay.
Joshua Foer, a journalist. So the memory palace. Okay, finally, Peter Jackson, director of all of the Hobbit movies,
Uh-huh.
the Lord of the Rings. If you're an only child, you spend a lot of time by yourself and you develop a strong ability to entertain yourself, to conjure up fantasy. So being an only child led to some of his great career highs.
Okay. I
And then, sorry?
Go ahead.
Okay, finally, Deval Patrick said if you're ever going to move beyond where you stand at that moment, you have to conjure a picture in your head of where you want to go.
Hmm.
That kind of goes with your brainstorming talk
It
too.
does. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
It's fun how all of these kind of connect in many ways,
Hmm.
and there are parallels and there are segments that intersect. And wow, it's really kind of fun. I'm amazed at how much we have read, how much we have learned over the years
Mm-hmm.
doing this.
Yes. Yes.
Um, I'm going to give you one last thought from
Good.
Amy
Thank you.
Mosier.
Thank you.
Again, she talked about the elements for fostering cultural magic. And she says, mastering the craft of cultural magic is setting the stage for innovation, loyalty, and productivity. A good culture is the organization's most valuable asset. It's not the people anymore. It's a good
Ah.
culture. And so it's a group of people that she's talking about. She says a positive employer cult, cultural feels I'm sorry, a positive employer culture feels magical.
Mm.
It takes practice and ongoing commitment to make the workplace more collaborative, engaging, and satisfying for everyone involved. She says there is a craft to bring about magical cultural magic and to master it, and you need to witness it as it unfolds. And I thought, how cool is that?
That is cool.
It is really cool. Anyway, I will leave it to you, my friend.
Well, this is a word, as I mentioned, that celebrates the power of imagination and creation. And even just as we've been talking today, I have found my emotions going up and then down and then up and then down. And I want to thank you, Wayne, because it's a powerful word that is worth exploring more deeply for many reasons, positive and challenging. And thank you, Wayne. And thanks, folks, for listening. We welcome and respond to feedback that you give us about our words and about our process. So
Thanks,
thank you, Wayne.
everyone. Thank you, Sheila. And boy, I hope we can conjure up something for the next one. Thanks, Sheila. Bye bye. See you
Bye bye.
next week.